Welcome to this explainer. Think of this as your definitive, highly structured study guide for Section 1.2 of your Lok Sewa syllabus. We're going to be looking at Nepal's natural resources today. Honestly, the geographic and geological layout here presents a pretty complex developmental landscape. And to really master this material, you need a deep analytical comprehension of how these resources actually drive macroeconomic stability. To make sense of all this, we're going to systematically break things down into 4 key pillars: water, forest, mineral, and land. Let's jump right into Chapter 1, Water Resources and Hydropower, and the Macroeconomics of Energy. Okay, I want you to anchor this core data point in your mind for your subjective writing. While Nepal has a theoretical potential of 83,000 megawatts of hydroelectricity, exactly 43,000 megawatts of that is considered economically and commercially viable. That distinction between theoretical and viable capacity is an absolutely fundamental metric when you're discussing national energy policy or foreign direct investment. And we are seeing rapid scaling in this sector right now. Our current grid capacity just crossed a major milestone, hitting 4,296 megawatts. This represents a massive expansion of grid connectivity, and it's being bolstered by recent additions like the 102-megawatt Madhya Botakoshi project. This accelerated phase is literally transforming Nepal from an energy deficit nation into a real emerging regional electricity exporter. Now, regional energy integration requires some pretty precise physical mechanics to actually route Nepali electricity across Indian infrastructure and into Bangladesh. So energy generated at run-of-river projects like Trishuli and Shilime first enters the Indian grid over the Dalkaber-Muzaffarpur 400 kilovolt line. From there, it's routed into Bangladesh via the Baharampur-Baramara transmission line. It's like a giant regional puzzle. But of course, transboundary geopolitics completely dictate this flow. While a 40-megawatt export operates totally smoothly under a tripartite agreement, an additional 20-megawatt allocation is currently blocked. India's regulatory authorities have withheld the necessary capacity approvals, basically stating that the existing transmission line just can't accommodate that extra power right now. It really highlights the complexities, of relying on cross-border infrastructure. Moving on to Chapter 2. Forest Resources and Conservation and Ecological Economics. The absolute critical threshold you need to memorize here is 46.08%. That is the total land area in Nepal currently covered by forest and shrubbery. It's a vital data point because it demonstrates a truly remarkable environmental recovery from the 1990s, back when forest coverage had dropped to just 39.6%. Breaking that number down a bit further, 43.38% is actual dense forest area, while the remaining 2.70% is classified as bush and shrubland. Having this precise categorization is essential when you're looking at land use and biodiversity metrics. And when we look at the macro level, Nepal's impressive recovery secures our position as the second most forested nation in South Asia. We're positioned strictly behind Bhutan, which leads the region with nearly 70% coverage, and we sit comfortably ahead of Sri Lanka. Now, this recovery wasn't just some happy accident. It's the direct result of Nepal's internationally acclaimed community forestry programs. We decentralized management to over 23,000 active user groups. By empowering local communities to directly manage roughly 2.5 million hectares, and by declaring over 23% of the country's protected areas, Nepal essentially created a highly robust structural driver for conservation. Pivoting now to Chapter 3, Mineral Resources and Limestone, and their industrial impact. The geological foundation of Nepal's industrial sector basically rests upon an estimated 1.07 to 2.5 billion metric tons of limestone reserves. This absolute abundance is the singular reason Nepal has transitioned over the past 2 decades from being a net cement importer to a self-sufficient producer that actually has regional export capabilities. What's really interesting here is the rigorous geochemical analysis from the Department of Mines. It proves the high calcium oxide content that made this transition possible. Official reports show precise chemical variations across different geological formations, completely confirming the viability of cement-grade limestone all throughout the Mahabharat Range. But here is the crucial point for your analysis. Despite all this resource abundance, the sector is facing some severe macroeconomic imbalances. We're seeing capacity overexpansion that's leading to aggressive price wars. We're watching the decline of state enterprises like Udaipur Cement, which is running at barely 30% capacity because of outdated machinery. Plus, There are massive revenue gaps driven by disproportionately low royalty rates. We're talking just 60 rupees per ton in Nepal compared to 140 rupees in India. And the whole thing is compounded by unregulated environmental degradation from open-cast mining. It's a complex, tough situation. Finally, Chapter 4, Land Resources and Degradation, focusing on physiographic diversity. Nepal's extreme physiographic diversity is increasingly threatened by structural degradation. This is primarily driven by things like unscientific farming on steep slopes, the excessive use of chemical fertilizers, overgrazing, and shifting mountain cultivation. These factors accelerate soil erosion and landslides, which directly threatens our agricultural productivity and, by extension, our macroeconomic stability. Now, for your policy exams, make sure you outline these 3 administrative bottlenecks perfectly. First, overlapping ministerial jurisdictions, like the constant conflicts between energy and forest ministries over land clearance. Second, chronic capital deficits that leave the nation heavily reliant on foreign aid and investment. And third, the ongoing failure to enforce environmental governance, which allows extraction rates in mining and quarrying to wildly exceed sustainable levels.
So what's the fix? Well, one scientifically validated policy solution is agroforestry. This intrinsically balances our extraction demands with the necessary rehabilitation of degraded soils. By strategically integrating trees and shrubs directly into crop and livestock systems, we can effectively combat erosion, improve soil fertility, and secure long-term agricultural productivity.
I want to leave you with this final structural paradox to analyze during your exam prep. How will Nepal successfully reconcile aggressive industrial expansion with the absolute imperative of ecological preservation? The data clearly shows we have the resources, from 43,000 megawatts of viable hydro to billions of tons of limestone. But the true test of governance lies in managing these assets without destroying the environmental foundation they rest upon. Keep that crucial balance in mind as you study.